Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for joining me for the morning market review. Today is the 11th of March. My name is Russell Shaw. I'm a senior market specialist at FXCM, and what I'd like to do is just bring up our disclaimers before we get on with the live stream. So just bear with me. I'm going to bring up our high-risk investment warning. I'll keep this on screen for a few moments. If you can just have a read through that. And then we'll bring up the market commentaries disclaimer. I'm just going to keep this on screen for another few moments. Okay, good. Let's bring up our market commentaries disclaimer. And again, I'm going to keep this on screen for a few seconds. If you can have a read through that, be much appreciated. Okay, good. Let's go ahead, bring up our real rate. So that's where we'll start off the analysis with the real rate. I've got the real rate as the top candlestick chart. I've got the US dollar as the candlestick chart below that, and then we've got the correlation coefficient below that. So what do we have here? We've got the real rate coming down. We've actually spotted that now for a few of our live. Hey Kim, good morning to you. We've spotted the live, the real rate, I beg your pardon, the real rate coming down in our live streams. And then what we've looked at is also the correlation with the US dollar, and you can see that the US dollar is pushing down as well. We got some very useful news on Friday, didn't we? We got the non-farm payrolls, and I think the takeaway is there. We saw that the unemployment rate ticked up to 3.9%. We saw wage inflation coming down. We saw revisions. Last month we had a cracker of a non-farm payroll release. That's been revised down by a fair amount. So definitely seeing some moderation in the jobs market, but not an all-out capitulation. And I think that is effectively helping the Federal Reserve with its decision about cutting in June. So I think we are on track for a June cut, subject to correction. And that's been reflected in the real rate coming down. So what we said about the real rate is that we're probably at the apex. So we saw this as the apex, and now it's starting to drift down. And what's important about the real rate, it's a key driver of the financial market. So you can see that it's driving the US dollar. We've got an 81% correlation coefficient there. Hey, Raj, good morning to you. And typically what's happening now, we've come to the end of Q4 earnings. So the underlying fundamentals perhaps become a little bit more apparent as a key driver. Before we had a Q4 earnings sort of drifting towards completion, the earnings were really driving the underlying financial markets. And the financial markets have been doing remarkably well in the first quarter of 2024. And now I think we may see some sort of pause before the, and I'm talking about a pause in the bull market as it gets ready for the rate cuts, so to speak. And one of the clues there is NVIDIA. So what we can do is we can take a look at NVIDIA, and what we'll do is do a top-down analysis for NVIDIA, and then we'll take a look at some of the indices just to get an idea of just how overbought are we. And I'm just going to go ahead and share the NVIDIA weekly chart. This is the, and you can see where is NVIDIA relative to its 30-week exponential moving average. it's above it. What direction is that 30-week exponential moving average? It's traveling northeast. That's all bullish. But there are some clues here suggesting that we may be at the top of this leg. We may see some profit taking. In fact, I think we've already seen that profit taking starting to manifest. And what you have here is an overbought condition. Okay, so the RSR is still very much overbought. I just want to change this to a rectangle like that. Okay, so you can still see that we are overbought. The weekly overbought condition, I think, is important to note. It's just difficult to gauge a normalization or some sort of timing there, because it can be next week, can be the week after. Remember, this is a weekly chart, can be 2, 3, 4 candles, and each candle represents a week. However, just take a look at last week's candle, and this is interesting. So we're looking at the weekly candle. I'm just going to zoom in, and there, that's better. I hope you guys can see that clearly. What kind of a candle do we have last week? So it looks like we've got a big selling tail. So what effectively happened last week is that market participants or bulls took price up to the high of last week. Once we hit the high of last week, that's where the bulls lost control, and then the bears push the price down. And I think that may be indicative of profit taking. I think given the fact that we've had such a remarkable run on NVIDIA year to date, and given the fact that we are heavily overbought, the fact that we've got this inverse hammer, so to speak, coming in, we may be seeing some sort of correction here. So just be aware of that. Yeah, I think we are moving into profit taking, and I think it's actually quite clear on the daily chart, Raj. So let's go through to the daily chart and see what we can gauge there. And I'm just going to share the daily chart. I want to just zoom in again. Okay, let's just, I hope this is clear. We're still overbought. That's the first thing that should jump out. We're still overbought on the daily. So further profit taking here, I don't think is out of the question. Okay. Just as the oscillator normalizes. But what I want to point out here, this is actually quite interesting, sort of as an academic technical study. What kind of candle do we have here? So you could say sort of a bearish engulfing, but I actually want to be a little bit more specific than that. I'm actually going to call it an outside candle. And I think that an outside candle is a very interesting candle. Typically what happens, okay, you can see what we call an inside day when we have something like that, right? When we have this candle over here completely inside of the range of the previous candle. That's called an inside period. But now what happens if it looks like this? Okay, where you've got this candle completely taking out the range of the previous candle, but with the open above the high of the previous candle and the close below the low of the previous candle. It's a candle that's riddled with emotion, riddled. So there's a gap up, it gaps up. So there's the bullish, but then it's completely faded for the rest of the trading day, as that there's almost a frenzy in terms of the profit taking that took place on Friday. And it's just interesting that it's happening as we close out Q4 earnings and as we start seeing some sort of confirmation for a rate cut in June. The next data point, by the way, comes out tomorrow. The next data point is tomorrow. Very important data point. It's going to be CPI. So CPI comes out tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. ZA, 12:30 p.m. UK. So that's the next data point. But can everyone see this outside day? And typically, an outside day, typically the theory suggests that an outside day, what's so important about it is, okay, so we've got this overbought condition and we've got this outside day appearing on NVIDIA, which has been really one of the key drivers of the markets for this year. So I think that we may see a correction in NVIDIA. Is it based on fundamentals? I don't believe so. I believe it's profit taking here. So I think it's a healthy kind of correction, and I think that it probably sets up a dip in an uptrend that we can keep an eye on. So just going back to the weekly NVIDIA chart, okay, we may get something like this. Sort of a reversion back towards the moving average. Of course, this is just supposition. So, but then if we do get that, then this dip here is something that we would be looking out for. All right. So, given that NVIDIA, who's been just an outlier and clearly a star for this year, what's it suggesting for the indexes in general? So what we can do is just take a look at SPX and NASDAQ. So let's just bring in SPX 500 here. Okay, so this is the S&P 500. We're still overbought, and the fact that we're starting to see profit taking on companies like NVIDIA, I think, subject to correction, that we may just be needing to prepare ourselves for a pullback, which again I would suggest is healthy because it's resetting the indicator. Okay, take a look at last week's candle. What is last week's candle? Last week's candle is this guy here. What can you guys tell me about last week's candle? Okay, it's what we call a doji, right? Is a doji. It's effectively bulls trying to take the price up, failing. Bears trying to take price down, failing. We flat for the week. And that is a candle of uncertainty. So after a tremendous run up, we're starting to see some uncertainty. Looking at indecision, exactly. Indecision starting to manifest right here. And then this candle, look, we've only just started the week, so I don't know how this candle is going to turn out for the week. But it's inside of last week's candle. So it's starting out indecision and then inside candle. Let's just take a look and see how NASDAQ's looking. Okay, just bring up NASDAQ 100. All right, so NASDAQ 100, actually, the overbought condition has already started to clear here. I think that's interesting. All right. We don't quite have the indecision on the NASDAQ that we had on the S&P 500. In fact, we've got a higher low and a higher high, but it is a red real body. Okay, so it does show you that even though the bulls and the bears didn't really capitulate on trend, they have taken, they did close down over the week. And then what we can do is we can just put in an arrow over here. Go put in an arrow. And then what we can do with that arrow is put in a line in the sand, a measurement line, and then watch this week very carefully. If it closes below last week's low, then we potentially have that bearish reference candle in. And if we have the bearish reference candle in, then we may be seeing some sort of reversion back towards the moving average. And then I would be looking to see if there is a opportunity, some sort of dip in the uptrend there. Okay, so where's this all coming from? It's just coming from the fact that it looks like profit taking starting to manifest. Okay. If the markets are starting to come down, surely the US dollar should be moving up. Okay, so let's take a look at the US dollar. All right. All right, so US dollar hasn't quite found any support yet. Okay, so I guess we're just going to have to keep an eye on this, Kim. It's dropped below its 30-week exponential moving average, and that 30-week exponential moving average is starting to point down. What I think is happening here, okay, is that the fact that there's now some sort of confirmation that there's going to be a June cut is starting to be priced in here. I think that's the overall driver of the US dollar at the moment. I'm not sure if we're looking at safe havens just yet. But what I would say is that if the risk markets start getting sold off quite heavily, there should be a modicum of support coming in. So I would kind of agree with the point you're making here. We don't quite have that coming through yet. I think it's something that we have to keep an eye on. I would expect, of course, that the dollar does attract some sort of flows if the stock markets start coming down. Remember, the stock markets haven't just started coming down yet, but we've started seeing some uncertainty. Okay, we're starting to put a line in the sand for the NASDAQ. We're really deriving some sort of hypothesis from the fact that it looks as if the darling of the stock market, aka Nvidia, is now starting to show signs of profit taking. But you're quite correct. It doesn't quite seem as if we have the dollar support coming in. Let's just take a look at dollar daily and make some inferences there. Okay, so let's just bring up the US dollar daily. Bear with me. Okay, let's share this tab. Okay, so what do we have here, Kim? A little bit clearer on the daily chart. What kind of a candle do we have on Friday? So what you're saying, I think, does hold some weight in that if there is some profit taking, perhaps the dollar's one to look at to see if it's going to lift. Well, we do have a bullish tail on Friday, so that's a very I think a very obvious inference from Friday's candle. Now we'll just see if it does start responding upwards. If it does start responding upwards, then I think again it's probably setting up for some sort of rally in the downtrend. That's what I think would be happening. I think that would be happening. Again, let's just see how the broader market unfolds. But I would say that your observation that the US dollar should be moving up has validity to it. I would agree with you there. Okay, Raj just saying, let's take a look at gold. Well, what we can say, Raj, is if the US dollar does start moving up, and if it does start attracting flows, it's probably going to weigh on gold. So we can say that before we even look at the chart, that maybe gold is ripe for some dare we say, profit taking as well. So let's go through to the gold. Let's go through to the gold weekly chart. Okay, so the weekly chart's looking rampant at the moment. What we would just keep an eye on is to see if the sort of 2-2 area holds resistance. Let's go down to that daily chart just to see if there is a selling tail there. That would be very interesting. Let's just see if we've got that. Okay, so this is the gold, and we are overbought here. So again, I think that a dollar sort of a brief dollar revival may be on, because XAU USD overbought. We do see that selling tail. It's not quite as pronounced as the buying tail on the dollar, but we do see it there. So I think that just to sort of conclude the hypothesis and then adjust it as the market evolves, I think that the risk markets are set for some sort of profit take. I think gold is probably set for some sort of profit take. If that's the case, then we may see some sort of support coming to the greenback. And I think that makes sense there. All right. Are there any other questions? Is there any other questions? Let us see how the market unfolds. Just remember, tomorrow's CPI number is going to be important, and that in of itself can adjust the analysis. So we'll keep an eye on that. All right, let's wrap up here. Thank you very much for joining me this morning. Have a good day, good evening ahead, and we shall do it all again tomorrow. Thanks very much, guys. Anna just asking, can we see euro dollar? Yeah, let's bring that up. All right. It's not quite overboard, is it, Anna? I think I kind of like this. I like this RSI. It's above 50, below 80, so it's moving nicely in the bullish area. But again, just like we've got that buying tail on the dollar, it does seem as if we've got the selling tail on the euro. So again, I think that I'd like to see the reference candles manifest and chart on the daily. That would help us. Well, we're starting to get condition ones, so we're starting to get almost a bullish reference condition one on the dollar, and a bearish reference on the euro, and a bearish reference on gold. Right? So let's see if those lead to conditions 2 and 3. Okay, so we can see that there is some sort of selling tail. Let's just take a look at euro US dollar on the weekly. Just bringing that up. Okay, it's interesting. We are above the 30-week exponential moving average, the 30-week exponential moving average pointing up, and the RSI above 50. I think the key here will be if there's going to be some sort of pullback on the risk markets. I think that if we get a pullback on the risk markets, then we can start seeing probably some sort of dollar support, and then the ripples through the other financial instruments from that. All right. Any other questions there? All right, then let's wrap up here, guys. I will see you again, similar time tomorrow. Thanks very much, guys. Have a good day.